Have you ever heard the idea that the obstacle is the way? This actually comes from Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics and is a topic that emerges also in self development. So I want to read you a quote that perfectly sums up this whole idea of the obstacle being the way by Marcus Aurelius. He said, "Our actions may be impeded, but there can be no impeding our intentions or dispositions because we accommodate and adapt. The mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacle to our acting. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." And I think that's a really powerful summary of what we're talking about when we think about obstacles. And yesterday we talked about distractions on the show and how things that we don't even expect in our lives can be distractions from us achieving our dreams. For example, dieting and being overly obsessed with what we look like and what we're eating is a giant distraction. The obvious things like Facebook and the news and Netflix can be distractions. They can also be entertainment. So as I said on the show yesterday, it's all about energy and what is giving us energy and inspiration versus taking that energy and inspiration away from us or out of us in order for us to move forward and be the people that we want to be. So think about your life and some of the obstacles that have gotten in the way of you achieving what you want to achieve and how you've handled those. So I can say with certainty in my own life, there have been obstacles that were like a speed bump and you just kind of deal with it and you roll over them. And then there have been obstacles that were like brick walls or cinder block walls that I've either had to figure out how to climb them or just completely knock them down. And what I can say about that is the times when I've been able to push through the hardest things, the only reason I was able to do that is because it was something that I really wanted or really cared about. And because of that, I was willing to go through the obstacles. I was willing to go to the ends of the earth in order to create it. And the first thing that comes to mind when I think about this is what I went through to get pregnant and to have my kids. I talked about my fertility journey before on the show, but it was a tough journey. And honestly, not nearly as tough as a lot of women and men go through, or could be women and women or men and men really these days. I don't want to be exclusive of who might be having to go through these difficult fertility journeys. And the whole time, the only thing that pushed me through it was that I really wanted to have kids. And if I would have given up and I would have let the obstacle of not being able to get pregnant on my own stop me from having kids, then I wouldn't have ended up with Joy and Coral, who are the delights of my life. And I find it really cool as well that I kind of always wanted twins, and this is the way God wanted me to have twins. So there you go. It was not an easy journey, but we got here, and I pushed through those obstacles. There have been lots of other obstacles at different times in my life, and I'm sure that you've had similar experiences. I can think back to my college days when my dream my whole life was to be a broadcast journalist. And I had this professor in college who, again, I think of it kind of like a distraction, but kind of like an obstacle at the same time. I overly internalized his advice to not go for it. And he really was just trying to show us the reality of how difficult it can be to get into broadcast journalism. And now I thank my lucky stars that I didn't go down that path because I would have hated it. I hate the news. I do everything I can to avoid the news. And if I were working in that industry and having to be immersed in that, I would be miserable. And look at me now. I can do videos on YouTube, and that's broadcasting. So who even needs a network in order to make that happen? But it was an obstacle, but it was also the way at the same time. Because had I not had that obstacle, I wouldn't have gone to study abroad. I wouldn't have studied Spanish and become fluent in Spanish. I wouldn't have become a Spanish teacher. I wouldn't have ended up as a college professor Spanish teacher, and I wouldn't have realized that what I really love is inspiring and empowering people to be their best selves. Because through that experience of having adult learners and helping them get clear about what they want in their lives and in their careers, I realized that I wanted to do the work that I'm doing right now. So the obstacles that get in the way are the things that help us clarify what we want. They help us to realign with what God wants for us, because what we want for ourselves is not always what the divine has as his plan for us. And we have to always be thinking about that. Am I pushing my agenda too much, or am I staying open to what source wants for me? All right. So another fun story I just read about obstacles that kind of takes me back to that whole university story is I'm reading a book by Bob Goff called Love Does, and I'll put a link in the show notes. Beautiful, wonderful book in so many ways. And the story he tells is he was not a very sharp kid, did not excel in school. His parents were both educators, but he didn't do well in school and just kind of floundered around for a while. And then he finally decided that he wanted to be a lawyer. Now, to be a lawyer, you got to take an LSAT. He was not good at taking a test. He totally bombed the thing, but he still applied for law school. Rejection letters from every single school. He wasn't going to give up though. To him, that was like a little speed bump or maybe like a half wall that he had to get over or knock down, but not something that was going to keep him from achieving his dream. And he tells the story of how he picked the school he wanted to go to, found the dean of the school, and walked into the school like a week before classes started and basically tried to plead his case for being a student in the law school. And the dean was like, nope, sorry, we have to weed people out. We've got a lot of smart people that want to go to school here, and sorry, you just didn't make the cut. Still didn't give up. He sat on the bench outside the door of the dean for a week, all day, every day. So much so that he knew the guy's schedule, when he came in, when he went to the bathroom, when he ate lunch, when he went home for the day. And whenever he went home, then Bob would go home as well. And he'd show up the next day. And this is before cell phones or any other distractions. Like, he literally just sat there on the bench. He didn't do anything else. Like, if we were going to do that today, we'd probably sit with our cell phones and maybe not think it was that boring. So all he wants the guy to say is, go buy your books. You're starting law school, or something similar to that, but something about going to buy his books. Go buy your books, you're in, or something like that. So he waits and stays every single day, and then school starts. And he starts to see the people come into class and leave class, and he's like, okay, today's the day. He's going to come out and he's going to tell me. And he had some discouragement after like the second day of class. He wasn't changing his message. He wasn't saying anything. In fact, he didn't even look at him when he walked past him. But about 5 days after the classes started and he was still sitting there, the dean came out and let him know that he could go buy his books and that he was in. And would you know, he finished law school, he passed his bars, and he became a lawyer. So sometimes the obstacles that get put in our way are just an opportunity for us to learn and grow and go deeper and really check in with ourselves about our level of commitment and passion for something. When you really, really want something, you are willing to do whatever it takes. You're willing to sit on a bench for 2 weeks. You're willing to get uncomfortable. You're willing to embarrass yourself. You're willing to put your body at stake and at risk. You're willing to do whatever it takes. So I want you to contemplate, what is something that you really, really want in your life? And what obstacles are you willing to go over to grow and to continue to carve your path to what it is that you really, really want for yourself? All right. I hope you have a fabulous day today, and I look forward to having you back on the show again soon.